And we're starting with this, the latest on Operation Epic Fury.
This is what happens when you don't want to negotiate. Israel unleashing fresh strikes on Iranian terror proxies in Lebanon as Iran retaliates, targeting central Israel with dangerous cluster missiles.
Yep, let's go to Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst live in Tel Aviv as Israel reveals it has taken out another top Iranian official. Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. A senior Israeli official telling Fox News that Ismail Khatib, Iran's intelligence minister, was killed in a precision strike overnight. Khatib was responsible for managing Iran's global cells, these sleeper cells in countries around the world that even threatened U.S. politicians and President Trump. This official says this man had blood on his hands, American blood. They go on to say that Khatib was actually the only person to survive the opening round of strikes in Operation Epic Fury that killed Iran's supreme leader. Those 40 officials killed in around 40 seconds. All of this taking place as we're tracking new incoming fire from Iran. Overnight, missiles soared through the skies of central Israel. Some of them intercepted. Others had cluster munitions on top. And you can see in this aftermath video here, just outside of Tel Aviv, flames spewing from a parking area beneath a building around the central part of the country. 2 people were killed in the area of Ramat Gan. We just returned from that site where we were interviewing a military spokesperson. A significant amount of damage to apartments there. All of this was taking place as the Israelis launched a fresh round of strikes against the Lebanese capital of Beirut, going after Iran's largest proxy there in the Dakhya neighborhood. These strikes took place following new Hezbollah rocket fire into central and southern Israel. You can see here the strikes in Lebanon that took place overnight, and the aftermath video there in Beirut. An entire apartment building was taken out in one of those strikes. Now, the Israelis are not just striking Lebanon, they are also striking Iran with a new wave of strikes today. And we know that yesterday the besieged forces, this wing of the IRGC, were targeted there at their checkpoints around the Iranian capital of Tehran. President Trump was asked yesterday about the threat from Iran. Here's what he had to say.
So they've been a threat for a long time, but they've really been a threat. If I didn't terminate Obama's horrible deal that he made, the Iran nuclear deal, you would have had a nuclear war 4 years ago. You would have had nuclear holocaust, and you would have had it again if we didn't bomb the site.
The most important thing to look at here is Iran's ability to deliver missiles to Israel and regional countries. And that was the concern that President Trump was talking about there. Iran was pursuing a nuclear weapon, and if they could attach that weapon to the top of a ballistic missile, it would be landing in regional countries or allies like Israel. And that was what the president has described as an imminent threat against the United States, its forces in the region, and of course, allies like Israel. Guys?
So Trey, the Wall Street Journal goes into detail about what the Israelis and our intelligence officers are doing to help get the I guess country ready for a takeover. And what they do is they try to bomb the headquarters. They bomb the headquarters, flushing out these leaders who've set up shop either in underpasses or in tents. And if they get blown out of those tents and underpasses, they were told to go to sports complexes. And when they gather, then they take them out. So it's a systematic way to take out their leadership. They're also, Mossad is evidently contacting leaders and saying, you're on a blacklist, you got a choice. Leave right now, join the people, or you're dead. And they're essentially responding to this by saying, I'll leave. Are you hearing some of this stuff, some stuff too?
All right, guys, this is not just another news segment. This is a full-scale escalation unfolding in real time. What begins as a headline quickly turns into a cascade of high-stakes military actions. We're seeing targeted assassinations of Iranian leadership, signaling a calculated decapitation strategy. At the same time, Iran's retaliation with cluster munitions raises the humanitarian and tactical stakes.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a real-time intelligence apparatus working behind the scenes to identify where these officials are and to take them out. The strike that took out Khatib, was a joint intelligence effort, we are told, by the United States and Israel to go after not just the leadership of Iran, but also the support staff. And that is why you saw those strikes yesterday in Tehran going after the besieged forces. These are ground forces. They're individuals who are in the streets manning checkpoints to basically instill fear into the population so that they won't come to the streets. And that's exactly what the United States and Israel wants to avoid. They want to give the Iranian people the ability to peacefully demonstrate if they decide to do so. And that was what we saw earlier this year, a crackdown ordered by these top officials and these forces on the ground. And so this intelligence apparatus that's operating in real time behind the scenes is allowing them to identify who these individuals are, who ordered the crackdown against protesters, and then to take them out in airstrikes.
So, I'm sorry, Hansel, go ahead.
Thank you. So, Trey, Donald Trump has said this week that Iran is talking to our people and they want to make a deal. And Brian was talking about how the foreign minister over in Iran was texting with Wickoff. And Wickoff announced that, and he said, no, I didn't do that. Well, we obviously trust the Trump administration versus the leadership in Iran. What's the truth here?
Yeah, the Iranians also say they're not targeting civilians, and we just returned from an apartment where 2 elderly people were murdered in a cluster munition strike. They also say they're not targeting Gulf countries, and they're targeting Gulf countries each and every day. They've said that they've not tried to mine the strait and that they are not posing any threat to the region, but yet they are firing ballistic missiles toward the U.S. Embassy in Iraq, for example, and launching drones and missiles through their proxies, the Shia militias there. And so oftentimes we hear these statements from the Iranian regime, and they don't match the reality on the ground. And so we can expect to have them deny internally that they are trying to reach a deal with the United States. But again, we have to think back before this war began. Before Operation Epic Fury started, Steve Witkoff, the U.S. Special Envoy, was speaking on a daily basis directly with Iran's foreign minister. So it's not surprising that they would be speaking now.
But Trey, this intelligence chief, Khatib, had a dual role. Obviously, he's the Minister of Intelligence, but he also reported part of the IRGC. And he was responsible for a lot of this hacking that's going on, and also the intelligence that was targeting the civilians. Is there anyone below him now that has that role?
The Iranians have prepared for this possibility that their entire leadership structure would be targeted in airstrikes. And so they have people that can step into these positions. But when we think about the bloody resumes of these individuals, it's substantial because the sleeper cells and the individuals who are operating around the world on behalf of Iran to commit acts of terrorism, they're ordered by people like Ismail Khatib.
That's right.
This official told me, and I want to just read you the quote that I obtained earlier from a senior Israeli official. This official said, this man had American blood on his hands. His network specifically targeted current and former U.S. officials, including President Donald Trump. And so, again, this gives you a sense of just how dangerous these individuals are. They do have the ability to pass off the baton to other officials in Tehran to continue these activities, and they will likely do so. But the Israeli officials have described it to Fox News as a hunting effort. They say they will hunt down these officials, and every time that they replace someone who's taken out in a strike with American and Israeli intelligence, that combination, they will go after them each and every day.
Yeah, if you can get that internet on, that'll be lay the groundwork for the people of Iran to rise up when they have a reasonable chance at success.
And eventually, the people that are next in line, they're going to say, I don't want that job. I'm going to get killed. Hopefully. All right. Thank you so much, Trey.
Now let's head over to Steve Harrigan. He remains at the Armenia-Iran border with more on how the president's relationship with NATO is shaping the operation. Steve.
Brian, the president's comments come as the U.S. hits Iranian positions hard around the Strait of Hormuz. The Air Force using those massive 5,000-pound bunker buster bombs. They're GPS guided, and their targets are often anti-ship missiles right around that key Strait of Hormuz. Some of those missiles buried deep into the ground or in hardened sites, and that was being blown up over the past 24 hours. And as you mentioned, the president sharply criticizing NATO allies for their lack of assistance in trying to keep the strait open. Here's President Trump.
Well, we don't need too much help, and we don't need any help, actually. We've wiped out their Navy, wiped out their military in every aspect. Their Air Force is now decimated. They have no Air Force, no Navy. I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake, and I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there.
Notice how the battlefield expands: Lebanon, Tehran, and the Strait of Hormuz all pulled into the orbit. This isn't isolated conflict anymore. It's a regional confrontation with global implications. Then comes the intelligence layer, joint U.S.-Israel operations systematically tracking and eliminating targets. That hunting effort language is critical. It suggests persistence, not a one-off strike campaign. And hovering above it all is the nuclear narrative, used to justify urgency and preemptive force. By the end, the tension spills into alliances, exposing fractures in NATO and testing global loyalties.
The president also pointing out that the U.S. supplied hundreds of billions of dollars for aid in Ukraine in its war against Russia, but yet Europe has failed to provide a single minesweeper in the conflict with Iran. Guys, back to you.
Thanks so much, Steve. Meanwhile, just to build on what he was saying, so far France has said, yeah, we'll join after the conflict is over.
We don't need you then.
Thanks.
So the president is, according to Lindsey Graham, he's never seen him angrier than when this all came down, when Japan and all these others said, yeah, we're not going to be doing that. Now, in their defense, they'd say, we needed a run up to this, where you're hitting us now. But you need a run up. For intelligence reasons, we decided not to tell you. But having said that, you know the number one threat over the last 40 years has been here. You know you get all your oil from there. You're seeing this take place, how you're all going to benefit from this. And now you could say, hey, it's going to take me a few days to get my destroyers fitted in order to do that. I understand that. But to just say no, the Strait of Hormuz, look, we could pull out of there. We get 3% of our oil from there. You know who can't afford that? Japan, the rest of Europe. Our allies in the region.
How much? Japan gets 95%.
90%. Yeah.
It's also important to note that it didn't start this way. At first, the president put the pressure on these nations, just let us refuel at the bases. That's where it started. And when they denied that, it ticked him off. And he was like, okay, will you at least help us with the war? Are you going to you don't want any involvement, no public support at all. So now he's using this as more as a litmus test. I mean, look at the operations on the ground. The Israelis and the United States government, we really don't need the help. We have been destroying them. But now this has become a test to these countries that often get financial support from us.
And we don't want to forget the troops. We do support the people that are out there fighting for our country.
Meanwhile, join Fox in supporting our troops from daily needs to global emergencies. Help us be there for those who serve.
You can scan the QR code right there on your screen, or you can visit go.fox/Red Cross to donate to the service, to the armed services, the forces that are out there on the front lines. We appreciate them.
Right.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.